You have started screen share.
Okay, this is my presentation of Croesus, King of Lydia. So, who was Croesus? Croesus was from the Greek Golden Age, and he's known to have lived between 560 and 546 BC. Um, and much of what is known about him was discovered by a historian called Herodotus, um, who also lived in the BC era from 484 to 425 BC. And across all the sources that I found, they consistently mentioned this specific historian and accrediting most of the information that we know about Croesus from um, Herodotus. Uh, so I find it just interesting using an ancient historian as a source for ancient history. But maybe there are more recent historians who are, Croesus experts, but this is just the main dude who's mentioned all throughout. And as far as at least as far as the three sources that I'm going off of. So Croesus was known to have ruled from the city of Sardis for 14 years. And um, I find it just a little side note, Sardis is very similar to my last name of Saris, which I guess makes sense because my husband is Greek. So he was known to have been really wealthy. So this is another kind of common fact, or I guess not fact, but aspect of the legend that um, I found in common is everyone's kind of in agreement that he's a king that is definitely associated with wealth. So he's known to have been really wealthy. There was allegedly a river called River Pactolus, which is actually still apparently a river in Turkey today. It was touched by a king named King Midas who had the golden touch, and he was washing his hands in the river, and the sands near the river became rich with gold. And then he was also associated with the construction of the temple of Artemis at Ephesus. I hope that I'm saying all these names right. Probably not, which is one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. And so I believe I don't have this written down in my presentation notes, but I also came across several sources talking about how he produced lots of coins. Um, so yes, lots of association with riches and wealth. He was born in 620 BC, and his father was King Alytus of Lydia. From what I gathered from the research that I did, he was just very much involved in like strengthening the military for his father, since it seems that everyone in the ancient world was pretty much always at war with each other. So Croesus was acting as the governor under his father's rule. Um, some sources say governor, some sources say commander in chief, but clearly he was working for him and providing Greek mercenaries for a military campaign in Parla. Um, I gathered from the material that historically he's viewed as someone who had too much pride, maybe someone who thought too highly of himself. And I guess we'll kind of see where that fault comes in when I talk about Cyrus the Great in Persia. Like I said, again, all this is very mostly legendary. Um, And none of the sources can really confirm or deny how much of this stuff is true or not true, but these are kind of just like very common tales that have somehow made their way through history. So Croesus had a brother. I think I'm gonna go to the slide. Yeah. So Croesus had a brother. So when their father died, there was a rivalry between the two of them regarding who would become the new king. So apparently Croesus beat his brother and became king. Um, and I was reading about Croesus's conquests, and I wanted to kind of understand those conquests from a geographical standpoint. Um, so in the sources that I've read, he conquested the city of Euphrates. Um, and so here's Sardis right here. And then I guess, yeah, here's Lydia. So Eupheus was in Lonian. I guess Lonian is how you pronounce it. And it says that he attacked the Greek cities of the western coast of Asia Minor. So I'm assuming that this is kind of in this area. It says that he conquered the mainland of Iona, Elias, and Doris. So here's like Iona, and here's Doris. And then this is Aaliyah. So apparently there were like city states on the islands, and he actually decided to form an alliance with them because he thought that might be beneficial for trading with the Egyptians. But yeah, here's the map that kind of just helped me understand. Obviously, these places are kind of in proximity to him, so it would make sense why you would choose these places to conquer. But then I was assuming when they talked about the city states on the islands that he decided not to conquer, talking about these ones over here. So finally, I wanted to kind of end with Croesus' defeat by Cyrus the Great. So I felt like the literature on the relationship between them was kind of ambiguous, but apparently Cyrus the Great overthrew Croesus's brother-in-law. And then Croesus thought he could defeat Cyrus because of this Oracle of Delphi, but he was apparently gravely mistaken, and Persia conquered Lydia. And it says that Croesus became Cyrus's advisor. I don't know if that means that he was basically like, forced into that role or coerced into that role, or if it was like an enjoyable role at all. I don't even know actually if he had that role. But that's kind of another legend. So I would imagine that it would be probably very difficult to, especially considering, like I mentioned, seemed to have kind of a big ego and thought really highly of himself. So I imagine that it would have been really difficult for him to kind of succumb or submit to a new king who had defeated him. So I don't know if who knows? They could have maybe actually liked each other. Maybe they became friends. But again, this is all legendary. And then as far as his death, that's kind of undetermined as well. But there are some sources that say that he may have committed suicide. Or he also may have been committed to exile by the Persian Empire. So couldn't find really a solid answer on that. But yeah, that is my presentation on Croesus. Thank you.